Hello, welcome back to this demo on join, zip, and union in Influence for Desktop. So before kicking off with the demo of how to accomplish each of these data combination tasks, what I'm going to do is pull up a little description of exactly what each of them is and how they are achieved. So when we join data between two tables, we take data from one table and data from another table and combine it into a new table relating on a common key. So it's exactly how you would expect if you're used to joining in something like SQL. With a union, we combine two tables of data vertically. So you take one table and you stack it on top of the other into a new table. So that's union. And finally, when we zip data, we take two tables and we combine them horizontally or row-wise. So we zip them together. So if you want to make sure you understand this, just go ahead and pause the video on this slide. Briefly, make sure you get what we're accomplishing here. And with no further ado, I'm going to hop over into the app and demonstrate how to do each of these things. So here we are in the app, and I have already opened up a project and consumed some data. So let's look at what we have. So we have some data. This is a diabetes data set from Kaggle. And the key that we'll be using here is not the patient ID as you would expect, but we're going to use this diabetic column as a key to do a join. We also have this table that I've created called codes, which has an ID, a 0, 1, and then the description is not diabetic or is diabetic. That is going to relate to this column here, diabetic, where a 1 means that the person is diabetic. Then I have another one called more codes, which we'll be using later for the union and the zip. Okay, so let's demonstrate how to do a join. In the Transform tab, if you grab the Join tool, it's represented here by these Venn diagram circles, and you drop it into the workflow, and you hit Configure. So you select the left table and the right table of your join. So in our data model, the left table will use countries, and the right table will use codes. Columns to join. These are the columns that we want to combine from the right table into the left table, or alternately into the left table in a new table that we create, but we'll just add them to the left table, so we'll add them into countries. All we want to bring in is a description. So I'll select that. And now we define our keys. In the left column, as you'll remember, we were going to use diabetic as a key, and in the right column, ID is our key. We're going to do an inner join. So I'll save this, run it, and if we go back and look at our data, you can see that now in our countries table, we have a new column, and it's pulled in the text value related to the key. So if I sort this just so you can verify, where there's a 1, we said is diabetic, and when there was a 0, we said is not diabetic. Great. So that was joining. Now let's take a look at union. So we go back to the Transform tab and we'll grab this union. What's important to remember when you're doing a union is that both tables have to have the same number of columns. Ideally, of course, you would want both tables to have the same column names as well, but that's not necessarily required. What is required, though, is that they have the same number of columns, and it's important to know that they will be combined in the order that the columns exist. So it's not going to look to map column names or anything like that. It's simply going to say, I have this table and I have the other table, and we're going to stack them on top of each other in the way that they currently exist. So the order in which you select them here is also important because the way you select them here, the first one you select will appear on the top and the next one will appear on the bottom. Of course, you can always sort afterwards, so it's not the end of the world. You have the ability to remove duplicates. This will evaluate duplicates across the entire record, not by a single column. So we'll just go ahead and select that. It won't matter in this case. And the other thing that you can do is you can include a marker column that will denote the name of the table that it came from, and then it'll combine them into a new table. So I'll say union codes as the new table name. I'll include the marker column this time. Save and run. Look at our data. So we have a new table here, union codes, And you can see that now it has 4 records because it took 2 tables with 2 records apiece and stacked them on top of each other. And then we have this column here, union marker, which has the name of the tables that it came from. So it's easy for you to identify in your data the source of those records. Great, so that was union. One more to go, zip. Zip is arguably the simplest of these. Zip essentially takes 2 tables and combines them next to each other. So we'll use the codes tables again. And what we'll do is I'll say the left table is codes, the right table is more codes. I will not offset them at all. And I'll say even more codes. Save this and run. In our data, we find our table. And you can see that it was 2 tables of 2 columns each. And now there's 1 table of 4 combined next to each other. If we wanted to, what we could do is we could offset these tables. So we'll offset by 1. Save this. Run everything again. And you can see that it joined it, but it offset by 1. So now we have 1 table with 3 rows, and this is offset. We could have offset it the other way if we wanted to by using negative offset, which I guess I can demonstrate here. So I'll just say negative offset, save and run. And if we go back and look at our data, now it's offset backwards. So it only included the last record because the other one is off the top here. Cool. So that was join, union, and zip, the 3 basic ways of combining tables inside of Influence for Desktop. Thank you for joining, and hope you have the time to explore these tools more, experiment on your data, and make sure you understand how to take advantage of them.